In this video tutorial, I will show you how to take a stencil that is already cut, already marked in the middle, and how to place it directly in the center of your disc every time. And so what you will need for this is a simple laser pointer. You may have one lying around from the late 90s, or you can pick one up at your local pet store. Then what I did with mine is I have a little Velcro piece to hold the button down and a binder clip so I can, as you see here, can clip it directly to the little light above my kitchen table. You may not have something like this, but you can use a thumbtack and a string just so that it's suspended from directly above. As you can see here, we've got this little red dot, and this is the principle of this method. You line up the center, and then without the vinyl being moved, you can place the disc directly on top of that. Now that was the front of the vinyl, and so right here we removed the back of the vinyl so that the adhesive side is facing up. And it's hard to tell from this video, but I do line that red laser up with the black dot that is marked on the other side, being very careful to place it down, not getting the adhesive to stick to your fingers, and just taking extra time here really makes a big difference to make sure that you can get that placed perfectly. And so then we will take the disc, line up that little dot in the middle of your disc, that injection mold dot. Once you are confident that it's lined up, you press it down a little bit, and then I move it out of the way so it's a little bit easier to work with. But once it's stuck here, then you can take the time that you need to get all of the bubbles out of the vinyl. And so right here, you can stop the video. If this is helpful for you, you can give it a thumbs up, you can share it with your friends, whatever you need. But now for the rest of this video, I'm showing how I get all of the bubbles out. As you can see here, with this vinyl and this disc, I was able to rip up the edge really quickly without any of the vinyl sticking on the disc. Now, this doesn't work with every disc. I found that this works on the Star Plastic here, and with this brand of vinyl seems to work really well, especially with that transfer tape attached there. But it might not work for you. Find what works for you. Some folks like to take a credit card or some other hard piece of plastic and just push the bubbles out either to the edge of the disc or where the cut lines are. And again, in this video, I'm showing you how I go all the way to the edge of the disc, making sure that all of the air bubbles are out to the best of my ability. Now, if you've got more of a simple stencil, you might not have to worry about this. Bubbles can be okay as long as they're not anywhere near the cut lines where ink might bleed into during the process. But if there are any bubbles or creases on those cut lines, you need to take extra careful attention to make sure that those are smoothed out. Especially if you're hot dipping, you can really get in there. If you're just using a lotion dye, you could probably get away with it, especially if you cover it up with a little bit of wood glue or something else. But again, as you can see here, I'm just getting all of the bubbles out to the best of my ability. And then I take a bright light to just kind of look at the glare, and sometimes the glare from the light will reveal where a bubble is, and you can sometimes pick up the edge of that adhesive from the vinyl and just kind of press that down. If these methods don't work, you can use a hair dryer, and you can heat up the vinyl a little bit. That makes it a little more stretchy, a little more tacky, and you can press it back down and getting the creases out. I would suggest that if there's a really heavy crease, if there's a bubble that you're fairly certain will bleed, I would just start all over. Get a new piece of vinyl, spend the $2, $3 at most on a sheet of vinyl instead of risking bleeding on a $20 disc. Now here I'm removing the transfer tape. What I like to do is I like to weed directly from the disc, and so you did not see me removing any of the excess vinyl from the stencil before this process. I used to do it that way. This I have found works better for placing the vinyl and for preventing bleeds. And so right here I'm just very carefully removing the transfer tape, leaving all of the vinyl on the disc. And in just a moment here I'll show you just the early steps of weeding the disc. Now this does take some time. If you rush this, you could rip up some of the vinyl. Just be extra careful. And on the right side here, I place some of that vinyl down on my table just to hold it still. But if you see the vinyl starting to come up, press it back down. Whatever method you have for removing the transfer tape, I found this works best for me with the vinyl that I'm using. So now that the transfer tape's removed, the stencil is placed directly on the center of the disc. Before I start weeding, I try to take the excess vinyl and I place it on the back of the disc very lightly. I mentioned a few other dyeing methods before. If you're doing a lotion dye or something like that, you could just leave this placed on the back. But I found that when I do hot dips or when I am doing longer cold dipping methods, that if you actually wrap the vinyl over on the back like this, the creases can work kind of like a siphon and bring the ink from underneath the disc back onto the back side of the disc and bringing a lot of ink back there. I would suggest you get a dental pick. Instead of using the Cricut tools for weeding, this has a much sharper point, and I like using the curved back edge there to press down some of the extra bubbles, because when you remove the transfer tape, you might get some bubbles in the process. Just press those back down, and if there's some that are really stubborn, use a hairdryer, heat up that vinyl a little bit, and then stick it back down there. Now for this video, I'm not going to remove all of the vinyl, but I will show you the circle edge around here so you can see approximately how centered that is. When you're using a sharp tool like this dental pick, be careful not to press down into the disc too much. And as you can see, it is fairly centered. And again, if it's not perfect, if you're a perfectionist like me, just start the process all over again. But I hope you found this helpful. If you have, give it a like, subscribe. I hope to do more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.